Bhagavad Gita is a book of mankind's collected experience of and answers to life's most basic questions. Who I am, from where do I come, what is my purpose and destiny, and most practically, how do I find happiness? These podcasts originate in the lectures of Neil Bhatt, a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda. They are presented here in 20 to 30-minute segments, each covering 3 of the Gita's 701 verses. Welcome to Gita Wisdom for Daily Living.
We have been discussing chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, Yoga of meditation and contemplation. So far, we have seen in chapter 6 that Bhagavad has emphasized on quiet mind. The basis of all the practices is mind, and as long as you can control the mind, you can become a yogi. So Bhagavad had said, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, equanimity is yoga. In this chapter he also says, Dukkha Sanyoga Viyoga is yoga. The detachment from the attachment to pain is yoga. We have a natural attachment to pain. Our mind goes towards pain more than it goes towards other things. The other way to look at it is detachment from all the objects which has potential to give me pain. If I can detach myself from all the potential dangers, this is what we try to do in our life, is to avoid all the dangers. We try to protect ourselves from any potential danger that we see in our life. But once said, if you can detach yourself from all the potential dangers, which actually includes all sense objects in this world, all sense objects have equal capacity to give me pleasure as it capacity to give me pain. So therefore, if I really want to detach myself from all pains, all potential dangers of getting pain, I have to avoid all sense objects. So in verse 27, Bhagavan has concluded his teachings. Prasanta manasam hi enam yoginam sukham uttamam. That supreme bliss which I am seeking, all my life I am looking for permanent happiness. I don't want temporary happiness, I want permanent happiness. Bhagavan said that happiness is available to a yogi who has achieved this supremely quiet mind. Upeti santarajasam brahmabhutam akalmasham. Supreme bliss comes to this yogi whose mind is peaceful, whose passions are quietened, and he does not have any rajas. Brahmabhutam akalmasam. He has become sinless. There is no impurity on his mind. He has become Brahman. Brahmabhutam. He recognizes that my own self, the ego, is none other than the Brahman. This synchronization of my ego with Brahman is the ultimate goal to achieve that final state of supreme happiness, permanent bliss. But the basis of all that is prasanta mana. It all boils down to whether I can have this mind completely quiet, completely under control. And then verse 28 to 32, Bhagavan has described the yogi who has achieved this state of becoming Brahman. He sees that self in all beings and all beings in the self. He will have both perspectives at the same time. That he sees that consciousness in me, but I'm also in the consciousness. Pot space is within the spot, but pot is in the space also. That dual perspective, if I can have simultaneously, I can synchronize these two perspectives. Bhagavan said, that comes only when the yogi has achieved this siddhi of quietening the mind and becoming Brahman. He sees sameness everywhere. He never gets separated from the self, and the self never gets separated from him. Once the pot space realizes that the space outside me is no different than the space within me, he never gets separated from the main space. When my ego recognizes that myself, the consciousness in me, is none other than the consciousness everywhere. So right now we cannot imagine that consciousness can be anything outside living beings. But Bhagavad Gita time and again tells us that consciousness is all pervading. We are all existing within the consciousness. This world is created out of that Supreme Self. There was no other material was available to create this universe other than the Self alone. And because that yogi has achieved this state, he sees sameness of the Self in all beings. Now he has achieved a different vision you and I have. Our vision right now is to live in this world by identifying the differences. So the way we transact in this world is, if I can detect differences, then I can differentiate things one from another. Table is not chair, chair is not table, because they will both look completely different from each other in different characteristics. But I can also see probably the sameness, both are made up of wood. That sameness when a person sees, the Swamiji very cleverly puts it in the biblical term of that person now, because this is the sameness, he loves others as he loves his own self. I don't see any difference between doing something for me or doing something for others. It's basically one and the same thing now. And I also won't do anything to others which I don't want others to do to me. Because of the sameness that I detect in all things and beings. Up till now I was saying only differences, and that's how I lived my life. By detecting differences and protecting myself from what I don't find conducive, and then engaging myself in what I find conducive. But now I don't say anything conducive or unconducive, but sameness is my central vision. And Arjuna had been very quietly listening to this, and he has come to the conclusion that the basis of all this is prasanta manaha, supremely peaceful mind. And therefore, he actually verbalized doubt we have in our mind while learning Bhagavad Gita, whether it is at all possible. Arjuna, yoyam yoga tvaya proktaha, this yoga that you just described, which can be achieved only by quiet mind, samyana madhusudana, of the sameness that you have described, the yoga which you have described, which requires that I see sameness in everything and every being, O Madhusudana. We discussed the importance of the words used in our scriptures. All the names used for Krishna or Arjuna are strategically placed as a Madhusudana, one who is the slayer of demon Madhu. In this life, we get attracted to things which are sweet for us, something which is nice, comfortable. We get attracted to them. The attraction in the end creates all my sorrows. When I don't get attracted to them in the first place, I won't have the problems which they are capable of giving me. Krishna is Madhusudana. He is the remover, he is the destroyer of this attraction to comfortable, pleasant things. Etasya aham na pashyami. I don't see that happening. It's not possible. My mind always goes to finer things in life. And I find Marriott is better than Hilton. I want to stay at Marriott, not at Super 8. This is the nature of my mind. My mind always gravitates towards finer things and avoids painful, uncomfortable situations. Etasya aham na pasyam. I don't think that's going to change. Chanchalatvat sthitim stiram. Because the very nature of mind is ever changing. Mind is constantly flowing in various directions. Whatever the sense organs report to it, I was only experiencing 7-Eleven's coffee. My mind was always looking for 7-Eleven's coffee. I remember when we used to practice bhajans in our youth group, we used to invite a violin player. The violin player, as soon as he comes, we have to send somebody to get his coffee from 7-Eleven. We couldn't offer him coffee at home. Oh yeah, Subhas is here, go and get his coffee from 7-Eleven. Because for him, 7-Eleven's coffee was ultimate. He said, mana is chanchala. As long as it is not experienced the other thing, he may stick to this. But as soon as it finds other thing better than this, it's going to move on to the next thing. And then the next thing. Chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram. Therefore, I do not see this as long-lasting situation. Even if I practice everything that you taught me in this chapter about meditation. Find a quiet place, sit down comfortably, then focus on one point. Then once I focus on one point, if your mind runs away, bring it back. I may do it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But what is after that? After that, my mind is going to do exactly what it was doing before I sat down for meditation. So therefore, oh Krishna, this is wonderful discourse, but I don't think this is possible to achieve the permanent steadiness, prasanta manasam, which you have described in verse 27. So very bold question, and very daring question, because he completely told Krishna that this is not practical. It sounds very good, it has good aesthetics, it's very, very pleasant to hear, but I don't see its application in my life. Because my life, I know how my mind works, and it's not going to be staying at one place as you require my mind to do. I think every one of us, without an exception, feels exactly the same way. You say, I practice meditation. How many minutes? We count in minutes meditation. Bhagavan said it has to be a permanent situation. Your mind should be steady all the time. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balbadrudam. He said, I'm not giving you this argument just to make an argument, but I know the nature of mind, my mind at least. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balbadrudam. This mind is chanchal, always going in different directions. Pramati, and it's very turbulent. Balabhadridam, and very strong and firm. Once my mind gets attached to an object, it's very difficult to remove it. If I start thinking about drinking coffee, I won't be able to concentrate on what I'm doing till I get a cup of coffee. The mind is very strong. I have to get up and get a cup of coffee, then I can focus on whatever I was doing before. Then I put the coffee in that warmer I keep on my desk, then I'll forget about it. After an hour, I'll realize that I got up, went and got a cup of coffee. Coffee was not really needed because I didn't even remember to drink. But at that time, the mind was so attached to the coffee, I had to go and get a cup of coffee. Swamiji explains here the word Krishna comes from the root Kris. Kris means to uproot. So Krishna is the one who uproots all these attachments from my mind, is Krishna. So therefore, Bhagavan Vedvyas very strategically put this verse. Arjuna has not addressed Krishna as Krishna commonly. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramati balvadridam. This mind is not only all over the place and going everywhere, but it's very turbulent, very difficult to control. And dridam, when it gets attached to something, it's very difficult to disengage it from that object. Tasya aham nigraham manye vayoho iva duskaram. Not only duskaram, not difficult, very difficult, suduskaram. I consider control of this mind as difficult as wind. And right now we have this prediction of hurricane hitting upper east coast. All you can do is get out of its way. There is nothing you can say will prevent the hurricane from hitting New York or Long Island. Divert it towards the sea. None of that is in our power. Even though we are superpower, only thing you can do is get out of its way. So this mind is as difficult to control as wind, and therefore, O Krishna, I don't think it is possible. Even if I control my mind temporarily, permanently it is not possible. Therefore, this yoga is not a practical yoga. And Bhagavan then answers this question. He says, Asansayam mahabaho manaha durnigraham chalam. We can learn a technique of how to win an argument. If we are debating or arguing or negotiating and somebody makes a point, and if you right or reject it, that person will become even firmer in his opinion. I don't believe that he will become a firmer and say, well, I don't agree with you. And that will continue, nobody will win the argument. So Bhagavan, what is first, he agrees with Arjuna. He said, you are right. So first thing you do is agree with your opponent. Asansayama. No doubt. You are not wrong, Arjuna. You are not making argument just for the sake of making an argument. But your argument is very, very valid. Asansayam mahabaho manaha durnigraham chalam. That mind is difficult to control. This is a very commonly known fact. The mind is not easy to control. So Arjuna, you are right. You came up with the right argument that mind cannot be controlled easily. However, it can be controlled. So your second assertion that it can never be controlled is not really correct. It can be controlled. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. By practice, anything can be achieved. Practice makes a man perfect. It's a saying. It should be practice makes a person perfect, whether it's a man or a woman. So by practice, you can gain anything. By practice, we program our mind to drive a car. By practice, we program ourselves to ride a bicycle, which technically doesn't make any sense that it will have a balance. By constantly practicing, you can control your mind. If you can train wild animals in circus, you can't imagine an elephant standing on two legs. But you go to see circus and you see the elephant standing on two legs when the trainer gives a signal. Or a lion jumping through a burning ring. All that is typically unthinkable, unimaginable. By training the wild animal, the circus guys are showing us what is possible. He said that even if you consider this mind like their wild animal, it is trainable. What it requires is constant practice. Abhyasena kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. And by dispassion, by sannyasa, we have learned sannyasa. Sannyasa is renunciation of ego, renunciation of that idea that I am the doer. So it's a abhyasena kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. By constant practice. If you come to the conclusion that the way I live my life is not the path for permanent happiness, and the permanent happiness lies in my immortality, then you have to practice that path. So we started our abhyas from chapter 1, Arjuna Vishad Yoga. In Arjuna Vishad Yoga, we have accepted the fact that in our life, the situations are confusing and contradictory and not really conducive for permanent happiness. I have to do injustice to the people I love or kill, as Arjuna said. There are things which are very contradictory. If I do one thing, then I will be doing injustice to some other people. If I do this, I may not be doing what is good for me. So this life is very, very confusing, and therefore there is a vishad in my life. Therefore, I have this sorrow in my life. And therefore, the life which I am living is not really a clearer path for permanent happiness. So that my vishad, that's where my practice starts. acceptance that this is not the way to achieve my goal. So the next chapter told us, then what is the goal? The goal is immortality. You are immortal being. Immortality is the only way I can achieve permanent happiness. And that immortality is my very nature. I just have to recognize it. And to that I have to work in a particular manner. Which chapter 3 told us karma yoga, how to act in this world. Chapter 4 told us you have to now stop acting and renounce these actions in knowledge. Who is the doer? Either I am the doer or the consciousness is the doer, which is permanent. And then in the end, in chapter 5, it said, you have to renounce this ego. Renounce this sense of worship. And now in this chapter, see, prasanta manas, with very peaceful mind, I can achieve that. So this abhyasa, which you have started, by just accepting the fact the life I am living is not really acceptable. The sorrows are not acceptable in my life. In vairagyena cha gruhyate. Swamiji points out that in our scriptures, you have to start abhyasa first to get vairagya. So you can't have the vairagya first and do abhyasa. So mostly we say that I will practice spirituality when I retire. That means when I have vairagya. I don't have anything to achieve, anything to gain. I'm now retired. Now I'll practice spirituality. But once it should be other way around. Vairagya can never come unless you have abhyasa. You've been practicing it. You've been practicing controlling this mind. You have to start this abhyasa about who I am not, which will create vairagya. With constant practice and churning in the mind that I am not this limited being, I will develop dispassion towards the world of objects. And therefore, I will have that enough energy to control my mind. So Bhagavan said, there is a way, and the way is constant practice. And by constant practice, achieve dispassion towards the world of objects, and your mind will be controlled. It did not say that do not engage in the transaction with the world of objects. Asanyat atmana yogaha dusprapahiti me matihi. That person who has not practiced this, gained control over his mind, for him this yoga is not possible. You are correct, Arjuna. If you have no control over mind, this yoga is not possible. However, vasyat atmana tu yatata sakya vaptum upayataha. However, one who has controlled his sense organs, for him it is possible to achieve this control by above means, the means which I described in the previous one. By abhyasa and vairagya, it is possible to control your mind and your sense organs, then achieve the state of samadhi, constantly identifying with the Supreme Self. We'll stop right here. If you find this podcast helpful, please support it by donating any amount by going to the episode's website at neilbhatt.podbean.com or at chinmayarichmond.org. Thank you. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.